Hello everyone and welcome back to Property Podcast Today. As you know, I'm your host Lee Dahill, and today I've got Bruce with me. Bruce is a returning guest and we did not plan our outfits together, but we are here. I'm wearing the shirt I'm wearing and so is he, and they match. So we're not changing them. So as you know, Bruce from RentGuarantor, I'd like to get Bruce to tell us a little bit more about his background, what he's been up to. I know we've done it before, but for the listeners that haven't heard it, I think it's good if we do it again. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to RentGuarantor, Bruce.
Okay, well, hi, first of all, Lee, and hi, everybody. Look, I'm now 30 years actually working in this sector. Most of that was running as a MD or a CEO of several of the largest lettings businesses across the UK. But about 3 years ago now, I happened to walk past what was a new colleague at the RentGuarantor stand at an exhibition. And at that point, not many people knew what a professional guarantor was. So sort of having a chat with him and then later meeting the CEO, thought, this is a really exciting space. I can see this space developing quite a lot. So was lucky enough to join the business. At that time, we didn't know what was going to be happening with the Renters' Rights Act, which is actually sort of also had an impact on what we do here at RentGuarantor quite significantly. But now, sort of 2.5 years in this space, the company's in a really exciting growth phase. We believe, the best in the market at what we do, and that's because we are a service, and that runs through the core of everything we do here at RentGuarantor.
So tell me a little bit about what does RentGuarantor do and what problems does it solve?
Well, we're a professional guarantor, so
yep.
If
the clue is in the name, but
the clue is in the name, although there is a little bit more now to our service.
Yes.
Than used to be. So the clue's in the name, in the sense that somebody moving into the UK or moving into a property in the UK, if they don't pass the standard reference checks, they're going to need a guarantor. Historically, that would have been friends and family, but where that's not the case or available to them, they can pay for a professional guarantor, and we will step in and act as their guarantor. So we're helping more tenants find homes, and there's a lot of people out there who want and need a home, previously didn't have a route to finding that, and we're able to help facilitate that for them.
And let's just talk about the reassurances for a landlord or an agent, letting agent. What do they provide? What does it provide?
Well, first of all, it's completely free for landlords and letting agents, so there's no cost to them whatsoever. The tenant pays for our service. What the landlord will get up to 12 months or £120,000 worth of rent covered, and that's whichever comes first. We'll also deal with any legal costs if it does need to go through the legal process to get the tenant out of the property. On top of that, we've just added in damages cover for up to 2 months worth of cover for damages. So should the tenant damage the property, then there is also that on top of the rent that we're guaranteed. So cost the landlords absolutely nothing. Many landlords we talk to these days, their answer is, why wouldn't we?
Yep.
Why wouldn't we want to have a professional guarantor in place? So landlords and tenants, works for all parties.
And in terms of the Renters' Rights Act impact, easy for me to say. How are landlords feeling the impact, and what sort of implications have you seen at your end?
From our end, it's the volume now.
Okay.
One of the parts of the Renters' Rights Act was not allowing people to pay rent in advance, which was a way through renting for a lot of people. What that's done is it's balanced the market a little bit more, because rather than the landlord thinking, great, I'm getting 12 months rent in advance, I'll take this tenant, all tenants are on an equal playing field now.
Yes.
So we're seeing a lot more tenants now requiring a professional guarantor to secure that tenancy, rather than paying rents in advance, but also it's making it a little bit of a fairer rental market because of that change in legislation. So I think landlords are getting more security. If you look at the reasons why the governments, and I say governments because there was a previous version with the previous government, and it is sort of got cross-party support in most cases. What they're looking for is to secure longer-term tenancies for people. They're not doing this for any other reason than they want people to be in their homes for longer term. That's good news for landlords. Landlords don't particularly like just churning tenants. Every time someone moves in and out, there's a chance they're going to damage their walls. They've got to find a new property. They've got void periods. They might have to do some more decoration than they would need to do when it's one tenant living in there, because you can't see the mark on the wall because the sofa's in the way, or there's lots of reasons. But most landlords I've ever spoken to rather would value having a good tenant in place, and knowing that that rent is secure with a professional guarantor just makes it even better for them. So there were a lot of landlords who tried to exit the market, and I say tried. I don't believe they all managed to successfully leave the market, because the sales market just didn't support the amount of people to buy those available properties. So you're seeing a lot of those drifting back into the lettings market, and I think they'll probably stick once they realise actually all the doom and gloom that was talked about in some circles isn't the case. So I think landlords are just adapting, as they always do.
And how are agents and landlords responding to the new rules, and what are you feeling and seeing?
Well, as I say, I've been doing this for 30 years. There's been change coming all the way through it. Landlords and agents adapt. It's the good ones adapt. They've adapted. Yep. They were ready for the changes when they came in. Yes, there was a lot of work. There was a lot of paperwork needed to be sent out. Yep. Well, it was e-paperwork, not old-fashioned post, but there was a lot of stuff needed to be done ahead of it. But the good agents were ahead of it. They're used to change. This has happened before. We had the tenant fee ban not that many years ago. Tenants and landlords adapt to move forward.
And what do you think landlords are doing to mitigate risk now?
They are taking professional guarantors for sure. I mean, we're just seeing an increased amount of landlords doing that, wanting it, requiring it. It's the most obvious solution. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say that's what to do. It's the most obvious solution for them. It doesn't cost them anything, and they're getting the protection. So it's mitigating risk for them. They are, of course, some who will take rental legal protection insurance. There's a very big difference between insurance and the service that we provide. Whereas all of our contracts are underwritten by insurance for the peace of mind, it is not an insurance product we sell. It is a service that we sell here, and that service is free to landlords.
Bruce, in your opinion, what are the most important things that landlords and agents should be doing to address new challenges we face?
Well, first of all, understand it, I think, is the first thing. They've got to understand what has changed. I think it's harder for individual landlords. Letting agents is what they do. It's their profession. It's their job. It's what they do. If you're a full-time landlord, you probably understand it as well. But a lot of landlords who maybe only have one property or one or two properties, and they don't do it as a main business, it's harder for them to understand. So I would always advise people, make sure you're fully up to speed with what the new legislation is. There are some big fines in there if you get it wrong. And if you don't have the time, pay a professional to do it for you, because that's what they're there for. For many years, letting agents have found it hard to really differentiate themselves, not because they're not different, but because it's almost second nature to them to make sure that they provide a professional service. So for landlords who aren't sure, just pay the agent fee would be my advice. I know that might really some people might be taken aback by that, but pay the agent fee for a decent agent. Have them on board. Have an agent that's done their research on which professional guarantors they would happily recommend to use. Make sure you've got an agent who's really up to speed. That's the best thing a landlord can do. It's the best thing they can do. And the thing they have to really be aware of now is, discrimination is not allowed. You cannot discriminate against a tenant because they're on universal credit, or they've come from, a different background, or they haven't passed your traditional referencing. You've got to be absolutely fair with everybody when it comes to renting your property. You can't negotiate above the asking price on rent. You can't take offers. So getting your rental price right is important. As a landlord, you might not know what that fee is. So you might be selling yourself short, or you might be pricing yourself too high if you haven't done the correct research. So there's lots there, but education is the most important thing.
That's very, very sound advice, Bruce. And this is another question that I think is important for landlords, just to clarify it. So what's the difference between a guarantor and an insurance product, and why is that important?
A guarantor is a service. As I say, we are underwritten by insurance and all our contracts done. That's for the reassurance of landlords and tenants and everybody else involved in the transaction. But first and foremost, if somebody falls into our arrears, it is a tenant who's paid us our fee. So we're working on behalf of the tenant, and we work with that tenant to try and solve the situation, and in a lot of cases, I won't quote on here the percentage, but it's a very high percentage of cases, we managed to come up with a solution that works for all parties by acting as their guarantor. We don't want the tenants to get into difficulty further down the line. We don't want their life situation to be affected by potential county court judgments or anything like that. So we're always looking to work a solution. So that's first and foremost what we do as a service. And the difference is we are the service, we're not an insurance product. An insurance product, and look, I struggle a little bit on this, because an insurance product, if a tenant's paying for it and the landlord benefits from it, that can't be an insurance product, because you can't take an insurance product out where somebody else is the beneficiary of that insurance product. So I'm not going to sit here and comment on what other products are, but if a landlord is taking out rent and legal insurance themselves, then that is an insurance that they've taken out themselves for them, but that's a cost to them. So the big difference is that insurance is a cost to the landlord. Professional guarantor is a service provided to the tenant, and the landlord will benefit from that with us acting as a guarantor. As in the case of if it was a friend or family, you would go to that friend or family for the payment of the rent.
Yes. And how are you seeing attitudes to renting play out among tenants since the Renters' Rights Act?
Really interesting. We just recently did a survey in our Rent Positive survey, and 41% of tenants are feeling more positive about renting the property than they did in the past. Now, whether that's all directly linked to the Renters' Rights Act, I can't tell you, but generally tenants are feeling more positive about it. We believe that the market in the UK over the forthcoming years, the rental market will become even bigger as more and more people choose that as a lifestyle choice rather than choosing to buy and purchase a property. We've done quite a lot of work, particularly in the last 12 months in the living sector space. So that's a sort of build to rent space and purpose-built student accommodation and co-living. And those guys have been all over the tenant experience now since their conception. And they really listen to the tenants. So they're making homes that are right for tenants and good for tenants and offer them the lifestyle. And they maybe move from one part of that sector to another part of that sector. So making renting a lifestyle choice is becoming more and more prevalent in the UK. We're still only scratching the surface of it, but tenants generally are feeling quite positive about the changes that have come in. It's still early days.
It is. It's very early days, and we'll only time will tell. So, Bruce, they are all the questions I have for you today, and I want to thank you for coming on the show, clarifying some stuff, and going through, what the differences are, and taking the time out. So, Bruce, it's lovely to have you back on, and
Thanks
thank you
for having
so
me
much.
again, Lee. Yeah,
No
thank you.
problem. And thank you so much for coming on.